Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video I'm going to be making this little medieval chair. It's a file that I bought off Etsy, and I'll put a link in the description below. It is made from cardstock and cardboard, the type of cardboard that you get from your cereal containers. It is made with a little few embellishments of some little half beads, and also it's strengthened with super glue. So this was a really cool little project to do, and I learnt a new technique, which was fantastic. So last weekend I went to the miniature show, which you may be aware of. I've been gearing up over the last couple of months to get some completed projects on display, which was great, and I got some fantastic feedback. But if you stick to the end, I'm going to show you a little bit around Hogwarts Castle. So let's get started. So to begin with, I have cut all of the shapes on my Cricut. I've got a Cricut Joy, and so I was able to put this onto the glitter paper setting, and it managed to cut through this thickness of cardboard. There were a couple of spots that didn't go all the way through, so I'm just using my X-Acto blade and just cutting those out. So there are 4 layers to the front and there are 4 layers to the back. This is the back, and I'm just going to use a bit of tacky glue to glue the layers together. So I'm just going to work my way around and glue them all together. For the arms of the chair, I've done 3 layers. It does have 4 in the kit, but I have actually decided to just do 3 layers. Now this kit, I've got a link in the description for the actual kit from a wonderful lady who's created this file. And what I did do though is I did downsize it. So on the little red little square that comes with the file, which gives you the sizing of it, that was 2.5 centimeters across, or 1 inch, and I downsized that to 1.9 centimeters, and I'm not sure what that is in inches, to be honest, but that gave me a little bit more of a 1/12 scale, and that seems to fit a lot better in the project, which will be the Gothic living room that I'm going to end up by putting this into. So as you can see, I'm just working my way through and gluing these up in the different layers. For the base boards, or for the bottom part of the chair, I'm actually using a bit of balsa wood, and I'm going to fold the cardboard over the edge of the balsa wood and then just let that dry. I'm just going to clamp that down onto the balsa wood and put that aside to dry. I think in the actual instructions for this particular file, I think the lady had used foam. I didn't have foam thin enough because I had downsized it, so of course everything else got downsized as well. The only thing with downsizing it is that a lot of the gaps in between where the pieces fit together, I'll show you that in a minute, tended to be a little bit smaller, so I had to make allowances for that, as well as the tabs that go into the slots also downsized. So if you were going to do this, then probably, and downsize it, probably make allowances for those. So once those pieces have been all glued together and layered up, I'm actually taking some super glue and going over every single surface, so all around the sides, on the front surface and the back. This particular super glue is sort of a bit thick, but I'm sure that the thinner super glue would also work really well as well. This particular cardboard had a slight coating on one side, so the super glue kind of just stuck to the top of it. I think if it was sort of more cardboardy cardboard, I don't know what you'd call it, it may soak in a little bit better. So for the embellishments, all I'm doing is cutting them out of cardstock, and I just cut them in black because then it just means I didn't have to actually paint it. For one of the decoration pieces on the arm, it's got a ball on the arm. I've got these wooden beads, and the reason why went with the wooden ones is means I could easily cut them in half. I have got some all sorts of different plastic ones, and I thought, well, maybe I could do some different shapes, but I've gone with just a standard round shape. So once the super glue has all dried, all I'm going to do is go through and sand down all of the surfaces, so because it just tends to be a little bit more rough, and especially with the thicker super glue, it doesn't sort of sit as flat as what I would have originally hoped for. But that's an easy enough, just using a bit of a nail file or sandpaper and going through and just sanding those down. So once they've all sanded down nicely, I can move on to adding the embellishments, and again I'm just going to use super glue. I've not used this much super glue on a project before, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised actually how well it worked. This is all paper and cardboard and super glue, which adds to the strength. So if you put super glue on paper, it actually gives the illusion that it's actually metal. It goes that rigid and that tough. So I'm super happy with this skill that I've just learnt with this project. So again, as I'm gluing on the embellishments, I'm just going over them with some super glue to strengthen all of those up. And for the little rosettes that sit on the front and the back of the chair, I've just used a bit of foam and a ball stylus just to shape it up, and then I'm using a mixture of super glue as well as some tacky glue just so that it holds the shape onto the flat disc. There's just a complete flat circle on the back of it, and then I've got some of these half beads that I'm just placing in the middle just to add a little bit more decorative detail as well. So those are the two rosettes nicely completed, and they look really cute. So for the front and the back, there's this cross piece that just adds a little bit more decoration to the front, and then I can also cover that with super glue as well. So this is a really great little trick it almost gives it a metal type finish without it being wood glue. So normally I would use wood glue because that gives it, sort of evens out the surface and gives it a nice kind of metal effect, but it would have been too thick for this project, and the actual super glue allows for all of the detail to still come through, but then also gives it a little bit of a sort of a metal type finish. And again, I'm just using these little half beads just to add a little bit more decoration to the front and the back of the chair. So that's it there, just up close, just sort of adds the illusion that there's sort of rivets, and the little rosette goes into the middle of the chair. So that's now starting to come together really nicely, and it's looking really good. So with the wooden beads, of course, they've got a great big hole in the middle of them, and I'm just using some of this wood filler to cover in the holes and any gaps around where I've cut it through with the saw and it doesn't quite fit close to the cardboard. Once that's dry, I'm just going to sand back any of the excess and just smooth that all out. The beads itself have got a little bit of a shine to them, so I'm actually going to take that shine back as well with the sandpaper. And then these are the little inserts out of the seat part, which we'll get to in a minute, and they are just adding some extra detail on top of the arms of the chair. Again, covering everything up with a layer of super glue because it does give it, like I say, gives it that sort of almost metal finish. Moving on to the feet, I suppose. These are the feet of the chair, and so now that the glue is dry, I can actually cut away any of the excess balsa wood and cut out any of this little slots at the top where the legs come in. And then once I've kind of got the rough shape, I'm just going to go through and give it a really light sand just to kind of help shape up those, especially those curved pieces, just to help shape them up. And again, giving it a coat of super glue. So if this was foam, you definitely would not be able to put super glue on it, but because it's balsa wood, I'm able to give those also a coat as well. So these are the little tabs that sit into the slots, and because I downsized them, they don't quite fit all the way to the back of the chair, so there is a gap. So that's what I mean, if you are going to use this file and downsize it, just be mindful that it may leave a bit of a gap at the back because everything's being downsized. So this is really coming together so nicely. It is such a great little file. I would absolutely highly recommend doing this if you're interested. It was super easy to put together, and just using that super glue meant it was really fast because I didn't have to sit around and wait for waiting for the paint to dry, of course, but I didn't have to wait for the glue to dry. So this is, I've just done brown on the bottom of the feet and to give it a sort of a wood look, and then the rest of it I'm just going over with, it's actually a mix of brown and black paint just to kind of tone down the black and give it a little bit more of a sort of a wrought iron type of look. So I'm just going to go over that with the black paint. And then once that's all done, I'm going to use a couple of layers of metallics. So I'm going to use a silver and this bronzy kind of colour, and then I also am going to go over with gold. So I'm going to start with the silver and just go over like a really quite heavy dry brush over the whole lot to kind of give it a little bit more of a metal type of look. And then I'm going to a really light coat of that bronze, just to add a little bit more depth of colour. And then lastly, I'm going to go over with the gold on any areas where there would have been like hands placed on the chairs and that sort of stuff, because metal tends to sort of wear shiny in those areas. While I've got the gold out, I'm just using that to cover the seat. So this is the under part of the seat, and then there's the other layer that goes on the top, which is the bit that's been cut out. So this is the bit that's been cut out, and all I'm doing is just painting this with a bit of brown paint to give it almost like a leather look. And I'm going to glue these two pieces together, and then I'm going to go over the whole lot with a coat of Mod Podge to really give it a little bit of a shine and make it kind of look a little bit more like leather. So I'm just kind of using those brush strokes to my advantage and painting those in. So one thing I did find is that I thought that the metallics on the chair were just a little bit overpowering. So I'm actually going through with some matte black, and I'm just sort of painting all of the inside of the metal. It'll make a little bit more sense in a moment, because I just wanted to kind of give a little bit more light and shade to the chair. So I really wanted the shine of the metal to shine, but I also wanted the dullness of the wrought iron type of look of the chair to also be highlighted. And then lastly, I'm just going to put a wash onto the legs, then it's almost done. So the very last step is to put the seat into place. So I really hope that you've liked this video. Hit that like button, it really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing. There is some really cool projects coming up that I know that you'll enjoy. So before I sign off, I have got the Hogwarts Castle, which was a club project. This was well before I had started, so this particular castle has been part of the club, and it comes out in almost all of the shows that they have, and it'll be coming out again in October next year for the national show that we have for miniatures. And so this is quite a large castle, and I've just took a quick little video of each of the rooms, and I really hope that you enjoy that as well. So until next time, I'll see you then. Bye for now.